The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Welcome to the program. Not dead yet. Those Vols stay alive in the College World Series. Also, Florida recruiting last week was supposed to be a disaster, and Lane Kiffin was kind of making fun of them, and now they seem to be rolling along. And also, we'll put together an all-time Tennessee coaching staff later in the program. So a lot to get to. Congratulations to the Vols. And we may also discuss, is Bonnaroo Native American for butts? Because I went to Bonnaroo on Sunday to see the Foo Fighters, and let's just say that thongs have become regular wear. Caleb Calhoun, I'm not sure if I'm a good parent or not for taking my kids, but the rave gear means that you wear thongs everywhere. Sounds uncomfortable for me, but the ladies seem to like it. So does Bonnaroo mean Native American for butts? We will dive into that.
I've done before COVID, I had done my fair share of raves from 2017 to 2019. And I went to the Bonnaroo up here, which is Firefly, which is in Delaware. So I've become very, very, very familiar with the new attire for music festivals. But remember, music festivals are all inspired by the original one of Woodstock, which just encouraged free sex everywhere for 3 days. So, yes. I mean, they're just going back to their roots.
This one was a lot closer than the 2000 Woodstock, in which they had just mass chaos and things burning and all that thing.
The one that they did not plan well at all.
Yes, where nobody was any good at all. So it was a neat experience. The Foo Fighters were fantastic, just by the way. And I did not know that they put a strict time limit on them. But I think the Foo Fighters are kind of like our generation. I know we're separate, of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. I get the feeling they would have just played forever and ever and ever had they been allowed to. But I didn't know the rules were so strict at Bonnaroo. So, but anyway, the EDM.
That's because of Kanye.
Yeah, is it Kanye? Is he the one that did it?
Showed up 2 hours late one year at Bonnaroo, and then his ultra ego trip, and then got booed and got mad that he got booed. So it was just it's, when you do sets, you need to show up on time at music festivals.
On time was not a problem. Out the door was not a problem, which I was a little bit surprised. I thought that they would go on a little bit longer, but just an incredible show. If you get a chance to see the Foo Fighters, even if you just know a couple of their songs, that they tend to play them all. And special tribute to Taylor Hawkins, who passed away. It was really neat. And then I did find, I don't know if you saw that on Facebook or Twitter, but I saw a Go Vols spray painted on
I
the
did
side.
see that on Facebook.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty strong. So here we go, off and rolling. It was supposed to be over for the Tennessee Volunteers as they lose to LSU over the weekend, and then suddenly this team's got life. And after being down last night, and I got a couple of messages, it's over, the Vols are over, they sprung to life. So obviously you want to win a College World Series title, and Tennessee can still do that. But Caleb, the signs of life yesterday showed that this team has some backbone. It's no reason to start designing rings, but I was impressed with what Tennessee was able to do, because let's face it, the beginning of that game, didn't you think it was over?
The only reason I didn't was because of what Caleb Jaru told me yesterday, who brought up probably the best point of the whole show. And if everybody remembers, Jaru picked LSU to beat Tennessee on Saturday because nobody's been able to hit off Paul Skeens. Well, yesterday he pointed out that Quinn Matthews, Stanford's ace, threw 156 pitches last week and over 100 the week before. So the way he was describing it was once Matthews' pitch count just got a little up there, he thought that fatigue would start to set in. And I think we saw that with Quinn Matthews in the 5th inning. I mean, once the pitch count hit 70, he was losing it. And he was already, by the way, playing with fire. Remember, 2 runners got on in the 1st and the 2nd inning, and Tennessee couldn't bring them home. And then the 5th inning comes, and finally Matthews' fatigue sets in, and Tennessee comes back. What really stood out was, if you guys don't know, similar to last year, this is a program, Tennessee under Tony Vitello, that where the offense relies on clearing the bases. They live with the long ball and the big hits, sending 2 to 3 runners home. They had to play a lot of small ball. I mean, they got 4 runs in the 5th inning off what was it, Dave? Like 9-10 people got on base, and they got 4 runs out of that.
Yeah. And this post on the message board, all I know is Skeens is a stud pitcher for sure. So we were in Atlanta over the weekend and watching it with some friends who are big LSU fans, but not college baseball fans, but they're big baseball fans. They're Atlanta Braves fans. And I remember I said, this is the guy that my guy, Caleb Giroux, said you need to see because he is just nasty. First pitch. Good gracious. I was like, Tennessee's going to be lucky to get a hit off of him. That thing was 100 miles an hour and moved 6 inches down into the right. I'm like, good great. I mean, they're like that Jamal Lewis running the 40 and 4.3. You watch a lot of pitches. You watch a lot of 40-yard dashes, but every once in a while, one stands out where you go, holy Hannah. And that first pitch where he came out of the chute. So I think Skeens was a lost cause. I think Tennessee could have just thrown that one from the get-go. But yesterday, I mean, when I look at the game yesterday, again, it's one of the things I like about Tony Vitello that has gotten so incredibly lost in the fact that they were so showboaty last year is that his teams have heart. His teams don't have quit. And that to me is very impressive, Caleb. And there just seems to be, I say the same thing about Bruce Pearl that I said about Trooper Taylor that I now, and it's only 3 people I say this about that I've covered. And I say it about Tony Vitello. Is there flash? Yes, because of the way his team plays. Not necessarily Tony Vitello, just he's good looking. But there is also substance. There's something there. His players didn't mail it in yesterday. His players played hard for his team. Trooper Taylor knew the X's and O's. He knew the box. He knew passing trees. I don't even need to tell you, you're more of a basketball guy than me. Bruce Pearl benefited from some good talent, but he also was a pretty good inbounds guy, and he managed his team.
Coach in basketball.
Yeah, and he managed his team, and they always played hard for him. So this is a very, very small list. I don't lump a bunch of people in this list, but guys that have style and substance, I've added one to my list, and it's because they played hard for Tony Vitello, and he's on my list of Trooper Taylor, and he is on my list of Bruce Pearl. Style and substance. A little more subdued.
You didn't have Lane Kiffin in there.
Well, I didn't at the time because he just was running pro style stuff. Now maybe I would. And his style, let's face it, isn't really stylish. It's a little corny.
That's true. And also, his style isn't the one that maybe would get players to. It's not always clear that would make them want to go all out for him, the way they want to go out for Bruce Pearl and Tony Vitello.
Yes. Or Trooper Taylor, yes. And I mean, I can remember interviewing Montario Hardesty, and I was like, how's your knee? He goes, not as bad as the other one today. But he's still went out there and fought hard for Trooper Taylor. Needless to say, the basketball Vols did. They were dialed in. And kudos to Tony Vitello. Not that he needs to be on that list to complete his career arc, but he is on my list of style and substance coaches. And those are very, very rare because a lot of times they're full of it. I think James Franklin's full of it, to be real honest with you. If you want to go to Penn State, I mean, I think he's a good recruiter. I don't think there's a lot of substance there. All right, so here we go. Baseball Vols, Diamond Vols, what do they need to do? They've won a game. We talked to John Wilkerson last week about that, how in and of itself, because you have to face LSU, because you're probably going to end up in the loser's bracket, that was a big deal. So they win a game last night. What is realistically possible right now, and maybe you can even pull up the odds for us, which would be awesome because I don't know if they update the odds throughout the College World Series, but if they do, it would be great to take a look at that because I don't know that Tennessee has great odds to win the College World Series, but they're a heck of a lot better when they were down yesterday, I would think. Caleb, if you want to pull those up, then I'll go ahead and remind you that Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, revolutionizing the way you earn sports betting rewards. That means no more deposit bonuses that turn into deposit nightmares on Zen Sports. What you see is what you get. And with their cash rewards program, you get a lot of cash for a welcome bonus. Earn an unlimited 5% cash back on your betting volume for your first 15 days when you sign up with the code HOOKED. That's right, unlimited 5% cash back. Keep betting and keep earning with up to 3% cash back on your betting volume every month after that. And refer friends to earn a percentage of their betting volume as cash rewards too. Zen Sports is bringing the cash back to Tennessee. So if you get big on sports, you want to be betting on Zen Sports. Zen Sports betting just got better. Zen Sports, we love them. Use the promo code HOOK. Can we get updates on the gambling odds on the College World Series? Is that a thing nowadays? I mean, nowadays, you bet on the Westminster Dog Show. I would think so.
Yeah, for individual games there are. Now, funny enough, Tennessee was favored yesterday, and LSU and Wake Forest was favored yesterday, so things went the way they were supposed to. For tonight's game, Tennessee is a favorite. It's minus 125 for a. There's no like line. There's no. I guess there's no line, but there is a money line. So Tennessee's the money line favorite at minus 125. The over-under's at 11.5. And the reason I think that's the case is, and I'm going to have a column on this, actually, funny enough, probably right after the show ends, which is that Tennessee won at LSU. Not for the revenge thing or for a rematch, but you won LSU without Paul Skeens on the mound. Because I think if LSU had won last night, Tennessee would have had to beat LSU twice this weekend, which meant they would have faced Paul Skeens again. So you want LSU tonight. You can send them home. Paul Skeens isn't on the mound. The two pitchers that beat Tennessee lost 2 of 3 to LSU this past year in the regular season. They lost Skeens twice, and then they lost 1 to Ty Floyd, who started. Ty Floyd started last night. He's not playing tonight. Paul Skeens ain't playing tonight either. Neither is on the mound. The pitcher they beat was Hurd, who also played last night. At the end, I don't know if he's going to be the starter in this game, but I do know that it's LSU's depth in the bullpen and the staff and the rotation is not on Tennessee's level. And that's a big win for Tennessee. And this is where, this is depth doesn't mean as much in playoff, as you know, Dave. In postseason baseball, depth means much less than it does in other sports because you can just kind of run a 2-man rotation a lot of times with your pitchers. But on the second night of a back-to-back, they can't run any of those 3 pitchers. LSU can. So I think Tennessee got a really, really huge break with LSU losing last night. And I think they should expect to send LSU home tonight.
I got Caleb filled in for me. He was nice enough to do that with Caleb Giroux as well, who is live in Birmingham. So my name said Caleb Calhoun. I'm not Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. He's Caleb Calhoun. And we had a question about my coffee mug. My coffee mug is pretty awesome. Will you admit that? It's got all the Marvel characters, superheroes on that. How cool is that coffee mug?
That's pretty epic. That's pretty epic.
Dope.
Pretty dope.
And but Caleb's going he's going DC today. He's got the Batman shirt on. When I look back to what the Vols did on Saturday, it just reminds me how the College World Series is somewhat like the NBA. And that is you lose a game and you've got to keep your wits about you because it's a double elimination tournament, as we all know. It is not like so many other sports, NFL, college football, where you're out. You have to go in with the right mindset to win, but you also have to be realistic that if you don't win and you face a guy like Paul Skeens, who's in his lifetime going to win 95, barring injury, he's going to win 95% of his games. And that's college pro. I mean, he's just going to absolutely dominate unless his offense lets him down in the majors. So you have to go in with that right mindset. And I like Tony Vitello's mindset. I like this team's mindset, especially the fact that they got down yesterday. And I think in some ways winning that game yesterday maybe speaks more about Tony Vitello as a coach long term than the team he put together with the excitement last year, if that makes sense. That was an assemblage of great talent. They were really cocky and they got people excited. But what did surviving being down and facing elimination just a few innings away tell you about Tony Vitello, Caleb? It told me a lot.
Me too. It reminds me of I argue sometimes when you kind of when you are bombastic and out in the open, and really not just bombastic, when you're the center of media attention, you put a lot more pressure on yourself sometimes. And I think you kind of will. And I think sometimes when you kind of aren't there, you're able to tune that out a little bit. I always go back to a couple of games I go back to for this, which is to go LeBron, his best performance I ever saw in the NBA playoffs was Game 6 against the Celtics. You probably remember this, Dave, in 2012, where the Celtics went up 3-2. They're going back to Boston. LeBron still hasn't won his first ring. We're certain that the Heat are going to lose, and we're all like, LeBron still can't win. He's terrible. And LeBron went into a trance where he just didn't care what anybody was saying. And I don't think I ever saw a player go off like he did in that game because of that trance.
Unfortunately, I do remember that. And then we kicked this around over the weekend, but I'm just going to rehash it. If you want to post on our message board, and we'll be able to access this after the show, right, Caleb? So we can go back and posts that are on there. So what concert would you most like to see at Neyland Stadium? We kicked that around. Caleb said Taylor Swift. The reason that I want to go in this direction is because I had a bunch of Hooker shirts printed up, and I just did inventory, and I realized how much I have. So I still have a lot. So the top answer, and it can be alive or dead, by the way. Okay. So there's one that if you say it, you're going to win. And then I'm going to pick the second best one because there is only one band that is the greatest of all time. Tupac, Mr. Jones. I could roll with that, but I think most of our audience would be a bit turned off.
I don't think it's possible either.
Yeah, but you can be alive or dead. So okay. I've got one that's semi-alive. That's a hint because the drummer has an incredible replacement. By the way, the drummer for the Foo Fighters, I don't know if he was joking about this, but Dave Grohl said he's so old he was the drummer in Devo. So can you look that? Do you remember Devo?
I do not remember Devo at all.
Crack that whip. You don't remember that song? So I don't know if he was actually that guy. Metallica.
Whip It. Okay, Devo. I know that song, yes.
Yeah. So Metallica was one in there. So we're going to pick the best one. Oh, D is, man. I think D's got it. And you could go with Jason Bonham for Led Zeppelin. But if you top Led Zeppelin to play in their prime in Neyland Stadium, I'm hooking you up with a T-shirt. So right now, we're going to go ahead and put D on top of the list. He's the pinned one. If you can beat Led Zeppelin, which is going to be tough to me because Caleb would have to overrule me, which he is allowed to do. And
how about we do the Tennessean who Led Zeppelin covered for their most famous song?
The Tennessean who you lost me. Okay, help me.
Dolly Parton. Stairway to Heaven is her song. Led Zeppelin covered it. And she's a Tennessean and a legend and a treasure.
She didn't write. She didn't write.
Stairway to Heaven is her song. Stairway to Heaven was her song. Yeah, she wrote it, recorded it, performed it. Another crazy story. Dolly Parton was the original one who wrote "I Will Always Love You."
Well, I did know that.
Yeah, but Dolly Parton did "Stairway to Heaven."
Okay, you're gonna have to do a check on that. Are you sure about that?
Positive.
Okay, so I'm Googling Stairway to Heaven, Dolly. Now, she sang a cover of it.
Maybe I got that mixed up then. Maybe Led Zeppelin wrote it and Dolly covered it. Maybe I got that mixed up. I just assumed that Dolly never did covers. Dolly always got the writing credits and usually did it first. But no, you're right. Dolly, I think Dolly covered it.
Dolly has covered it. She opens for Led Zeppelin. That's our show. Portions of the program brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive. with their buying power, they can save you money, whether or not you're coming from Knoxville, Nashville, or Chattanooga. That's Vassy Lawn and Garden, Vassy.com. Go to more. Vassy Lawn and Garden, man alive. It is worth the drive. Toro, count on it. AC/DC kicks the most stuff by far. Loudest and best concert I've ever been to. I went to those at Thompson Bowling Arena too, when they brought out the big guns for those that want to rock. We salute you. And they had the big bell and everything. I've never seen anything like that. It was pretty incredible. So what band would you most want to see in Thompson Bowling Arena? No Kenny Chesney. I'm sorry, in Neyland Stadium. You would not want to see, for a fact, I can say that you wouldn't want to see Taylor Swift, but Caleb says yes. By the way, seeing Michael, roll your eyes. I saw Michael Jackson in Neyland Stadium. If you want me to really date myself.
I mean, I know your age, and it might have been a little bit dangerous for you given your age to see Michael Jackson. I'm sorry. Horrible.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was 11. He picked me out of the crowd, and then we spent some quality time together. No, he didn't.
Did you get to have a weekend with Jerry Sandusky at the same time?
I did not. Travis says the Stones, GNR, and AC/DC all together. Something similar to that. And seeing a big show makes me kind of wonder. There's a thing called Power Trip that's in LA, and it has Ozzy Osbourne, AC/DC, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica in a weekend. I will go ahead and tell you, Caleb, if I do that, I'm taking the Monday off after.
Okay.
Can you imagine? I'd be, Caleb, what? What did you say, Caleb? After that concert, pretty epic. And then Tool. I don't think there needs to be Tool. I mean, Tool among that group, does that not stand out? AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and Tool. You don't need Tool. Did you like Tool?
No, I didn't like Tool. Dave,
Nobody liked Tool. I've yet to run into one person who liked Tool.
My lineup would be so different. It would be ridiculous. It would be a bunch of Memphis rappers, plus a few Atlanta ones, and then a few EDM artists. I wish Avicii came back from the dead and could perform. Rest in peace, Avicii, one of the greatest EDM artists ever.
I don't really know EDM. I just know this. I bumped into somebody, and they seemed really tired. And they said, well, I'm not tired. Well, I won't be tired because I've got these mushroom gummies that I'm going to take right before the EDM show after Foo Fighters. I'm like, well, you do that. Because I'm going to sit in traffic for 2.5 hours. By the way, got home at 5:30. Thoughts?
I can actually brag and say I have never done hard drugs, and I have still enjoyed EDM shows. I might be the only person that says that.
I can do that all day long.
The light shows are epic. Man, the light shows. They're actually not as good outside, funny enough, because, the lights are better when they reflect off things. So light shows are better in an arena than they are outside, but all the EDM festivals are usually outside. So,
Yeah, there was this one thing called In the Woods where you could go see EDM after the Foo Fighters show. I passed on that. That just seemed like a great way for Dave to look old and maybe try something that he shouldn't ever try. Portions of the program brought to you by Craft Treats. I didn't have any of the CBD dog treats, the chill pills at Craft Treats, but I could have. They're pets as well for your cat. And if you go to Craft Treats, use Off the Hook. That's Off the Hook, and you get the promo code with 20% off any of their CBD treats, their chill pills, or you can also go with any of their non-CBD treats. Use Off the Hook to get 20% off there. Absolutely phenomenal. CraftTreats.com. CraftTreats.com. I don't know if anybody was on CraftTreats.com when they were going into the woods, but my guess would be quite possibly so. So Backstreet Boys gets a vote.
I'd love to see Backstreet Boys. They were great. Okay. And Justin Timberlake is amazing live too, by the way. Solo. I don't really care to see NSYNC live. Liked NSYNC. Backstreet was better.
Yes. And by the way, thank you, Netflix, for putting the Justin Timberlake concert on so that my wife saw it, so that we have to, at some point when he does another Vegas show, we have to spend probably $8,000 to go to Vegas and see him.
By the way,
there must have been 5,000 people at the that support the Justin Timberlake concert. There were
it's
unbelievable.
Speaking of Vegas, you know who puts on a good show because he's got a residency right now? Usher. Usher puts on a show.
Interesting. So we can go to Usher, and you and your wife can go see, with my wife, go see Usher, and y'all can see the Backstreet Boys. I can just stand at the craps table. How about that? All
Y'all
right.
had a heck of a lineup tonight at Bonnaroo, by the way, because I don't know if you got to see him, but I saw the night, like Paramore was there.
We saw Paramore. We saw Paramore.
And the night before,
she's about to do a Gwen Stefani because she's
Oh,
the
yeah.
talented one. Yeah,
yeah.
There's no doubt. I wanted to call them No Doubt, the backup band. But Taylor
night
Swift
before-
and the Backstreet.
Odessa was there the night before. That's one of my favorite EDM artists, Odessa. They put on an amazing show. I saw them at Firefly, and Kendrick Lamar headlined one night I saw, and then 3-6 was there. I grew up on 3-6, so.
You guys will be proud of me. I just drove right up. I drove through, and they said, do you have a parking pass? And I said, I'm supposed to pick up one at Will Call. I didn't have a parking pass. And so then I just picked up my tickets at Will Call, and literally Caleb drove right up to the front gate. I was within 50 yards of the check-in gate, parked my little coupe there, and took a nap, actually. Let my kids and wife go in, and there we go. Elton John was incredible at Thompson Bowling Arena. Quick Elton John story. I didn't know Elton John was playing. I was a student at Tennessee. He comes up. Elton John didn't come up to me. Scalper came up to me and said, y'all want to go in the show? And I was like, I hear it's already started at Thompson Bowling Arena. I can hear it. And I said, so I've already missed it. And he goes, that's why I'm only going to charge you $50 a ticket instead of $100 a ticket. And I said, sorry, man, you're way out of my price range. Put it first. Got ready to drive away. And he goes, no, what do you got? And I said, I think I've got $15. And he said, 15 for both of them? I said, buddy, that's all I got. And he said, all right, I'll take 15 for both of them. I'm like, okay. My wife and I had just been dating for a couple of weeks, so this was like the ultimate pimp move. And as it turns out, I didn't have $15. I had $14.78. And I went through the ashtray to find the change. And he said, all right, I'm not selling them to you for that. You've got to come up with another 22 cents. And I said, I don't have it. And he said, fine, take it. So not only did we get into Elton John, not even knowing that he was playing, we were on the 13th row center.
I was taught that in Knoxville, by the way. If you want to scalp a ticket for a buddy visiting, wait till after the game starts. Always wait till after it starts. They're desperate to give the tickets away then.
It is true. The Doors would be fantastic. The Beatles would be awesome.
Okay, can some people on this message board join the 21st century here?
No, no,
Jeez.
absolutely not.
Y'all sound like all those old guys. Get off my lawn.
REO, Speedwagon, Mr. Jones. What are you talking about? All right, so we got the Diamond Balls today. It is a quick turnaround, obviously. What do you know about the matchup and what Tennessee can expect this afternoon, evening, as they get ready to play a pitching matchup? What can you tell me about what's going on with the Vols tonight, and can they win 2? If they win 2, that's pretty impressive. And I've seen Vanilla Ice in person, not at Neyland Stadium, and I don't think you could sell that out. Go ahead.
I mean, I think they could definitely beat LSU tonight. I think they should beat LSU tonight. I'm going to say it. Tennessee goes into their bullpen than LSU does. LSU, so without Skeens on the mound and without Floyd on the mound, I think Tennessee should be the favorite tonight, and they are. So I think you'll see a lot more. I don't think it'll be a pitcher's duel tonight. I think you'll see a good bit more scoring in this game than you typically see.
Exciting. Tennessee has a rival that is killing it in recruiting, even though when I left to go to Manchester, Tennessee, it didn't look that way. 2 minutes. We're back. Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Who is the team that's suddenly killing it in recruiting? It'll surprise you because we were really down on them just like 5 days ago. Off the Hook Sports.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
There's your bear.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We are grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
When you want a hard cider that's easy to enjoy, one that's crafted to perfection, you need Tennessee Cider Company. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. With a selection of ciders free to sample, all it takes is one taste. Visit tncidercompany.com for more information, as well as to shop our ciders and merchandise online. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Hey, do me a favor if you don't mind. Click that like button, the thumbs up button. It helps us bring more people in. We really appreciate that. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, you need to do that. We've got a big weekend of Celebrate 98 cats that are coming in. Looking forward to that. So let me turn it back, if I may, just a few days. And this was Friday. This wasn't that long ago. That was pre-FU, pre-College World Series. And we're thinking that this is the straw that breaks Billy Napier's back in terms of fan support, because you had Florida commitment Austin Simmons flipped to Ole Miss, and he reclassified for the class of 2023. So Florida not only loses a commitment, but one that might be able to be an elite player. He's a four-star quarterback committed the Gators 2025 recruiting class. He committed on 24 or April the 4th. I'm not exactly sure how he goes from 2025 to 2024. I've never heard of that before. But at the time, we're all thinking to ourselves, that Billy Napier, man, he's really got it off the rails in Gainesville. He just keeps messing up. You had the Jaden Rashada incident where they didn't have money to pay him. Well, maybe, just maybe, there was a reason that Simmons went to Ole Miss. And you have to remember that Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin right now is the island of broken toys. They're taking in whoever they can that might have issues elsewhere, that might want to transfer. So maybe we should look at somebody going to Ole Miss a little bit different. Now we do. Why, Caleb? While I'm at Bonnaroo acting like I'm 25 years old again and instead of 38, why do we look at this Florida group as suddenly very, very competent and a little bit scary if you're in the SEC East or SEC? Why? Tell me what's happened, sir.
Well, so while you were out yesterday, Jaru and I did a segment on this because Florida over the weekend, after losing that quarterback, picked up 4 commitments over the weekend. All 4 were 4 stars at least across the board, some 5 stars. So that was defensive tackle Nazir Johnson, defensive end Amaris Williams, tight end Amir Jackson, and linebacker Aaron Childs. Jaru and I spoke yesterday. We're like, this isn't an alarm bell yet, because what it seems like happened was Florida had all their visitors early And they kind of had, you know how this happens, Dave, in recruiting. Some people get their recruit commitments early. Some people get them late. And Florida just got all their hits that came early. So they made the splash early and they moved up. But then yesterday came and they picked up 3 more commitments. Javante Walker, Makai Boyru, I think is how you pronounce his name, and Marcus Maskell. Now, here's the crazy part. This wasn't some sort of Florida getting guys in their backyard. Not one of these players was from Florida. There were 4 from Georgia, 1 from Mississippi, 1 from Maryland, and 1 from North Carolina. So Florida now has a top 3 recruiting class across the country. And I think the haul yesterday makes you start to wonder, did they get their NIL right? Are they building something? Is Billy Napier's attention to detail working? Or, and here's the real question, does what Jaru and I talked about yesterday still stand, which is that they just, the bulk of their recruits all just happened this weekend. And eventually, as other schools add commitments, they're going to fade over the few months. So that becomes a big question, Dave.
Okay, so there's that level where you shouldn't be concerned if you're Tennessee, South Carolina, or Georgia, right?
Right.
That it just happened to fall. They made it fall that way. These guys were silent commitments. This happens all the time. I've seen Tennessee pick up 8 commitments in a weekend, but we really knew about 4 or 5 of them, right? And this was, Philip Fulmer used to like to set these things up. But so there's that level. You shouldn't be concerned at all. You should be a little bit concerned because even though I've got questions about Billy Napier as a head coach, as a game manager, as an offensive or defensive mind, I don't know what he does great at this point. Maybe you can fill me in, Caleb, but I think every coach needs to do something great. Like Josh Heupel has offense, Nick Saban coaches defensive backs. I could go on and on and on, but everybody does something great. Steve Spurrier, coach quarterbacks, coach scheme. I don't know what Billy Napier does great, so you might want to look at his history and help me out there. But
he has no consistent strength whatsoever.
Right. So he's not uber awesome at something. I think every great coach is uber awesome at something. Okay, and every single one.
Unless you're a great staff hire. Dabo Swinney's not uber awesome at anything either, but he hires well.
Rare exception, I'll give you that. So with Billy Napier, well, you could argue that Dabo Swinney's good with wide receivers. He played wide receiver.
That is true, and he was the receivers coach for years, and he turned Clemson into wide receiver U. But
yeah,
but does wide receivers coach matter that much?
I think
does being a specialist in that matter too much? I think
there's something to be said for getting off the line and showing people different looks in a passing tree. I think there's something to be said for that. Maybe more than you, but nevertheless, I think most coaches do something great. Okay, Bill Belichick evaluates talent. Great. I mean, you look at the guy he picked up from Chattanooga, and he's an instant starter in the NFL at center. Okay, so and that was a reach. Everybody thought. He picked up Tom Brady. But anyway, everybody does something great. I don't know what Billy Napier does great. So there are 3 levels of Napier. 1, he got damn lucky. Okay, that just happened over the weekend. He got really, really lucky. And the second tier is he's Ron Zook, okay, which is a great recruiter, which you don't want him to be either, because then when he gets fired, somebody takes over and they have immediate success because they've got talent. I think Tennessee kind of not great recruiter, but Tennessee's benefited off Jeremy Pruitt's guys. Not great recruiter, good recruiter, because he was paying people. And then the third tier is that suddenly we have absolutely misjudged Billy Napier, and he is going to be a very good coach at Florida. If I made you choose between the 3, as a matter of fact, let's make it today's tough question. Did he get lucky? Is he good? Or do we have him underrated? Here we go. Today's tough question brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Integrity matters.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Over 50 years in experience, integrity matters. cityheatandair.com. And with cityheatandair.com, you are able to know that your unit may just need a part or Freon may not need to be replaced altogether. So there are your three options. I want to hear them on the message board. By the way, Freddie Mercury and Queen would be fantastic at Neyland Stadium. I love this going on, and keep rolling on that. All right. And by the way, Guns N' Roses and Metallica were supposed to play Neyland Stadium, but Axl Rose is an idiot. But anyway, Caleb, and he set some Toronto Coliseum on fire. But anyway, I give you those three options: lucky, good, great. What do you say?
Okay, lucky, and I'll tell you exactly why it's lucky. And I don't mean lucky like these commitments fell into his lap. I think these were guys Florida's targeting. Here's my theory, Dave. I think Billy Napier had exactly what you said, a lot of silent commitments. And I think what happened was last week, if you remember, Florida, we were laughing at Florida. They lost a player to Georgia, a decommit and a flip, and he probably knew they were about to lose this Ole Miss, this flip to Ole Miss. I think he kind of pushed some of those silent commitments to go ahead and publicly commit, because if they don't publicly commit, him trying to recruit other players long term hurts, because the narrative of what's happening to him now in Florida, that affects the players that he's trying to target down the road. And I think to save face, I think he nudged a lot of his silent commitments to go ahead and publicly commit so he could shift the narrative while trying to recruit these other guys. That's what I think happened.
Here are my thoughts. I think he's good, but I don't think he's high on the good scale. Ron Zook was a very good recruiter. Would you agree with that?
An amazing recruiter. I'm suspicious of some of his recruiting too, but what he did at Illinois,
Well, sure. I think he's a good recruiter and maybe a very good recruiter. I think that you had a lot of the collectives in Gainesville get in his way. I think the Austin Simmons flip to Ole Miss and him having a response to that is detail-oriented, which we heard so much at SEC Media Days about Billy Napier. So I'm going to say he's good and solid good. But I have no reason, based off Anthony Richardson's lack of development last year, to think he's great. So I don't think you're scared at all by what Billy Napier did in this past weekend. But I'll tell you what, I never thought – I thought Charlie Strong was a very good defensive coordinator at Florida. Did I think he was elite? No, I didn't. The Who and the Police, very good votes. We could put together a music festival, the Neyland Music Festival. We're going to do this. I don't think he's I don't think he can be considered a buffoon, which is quite frankly what I had him. And he may be very good. He may be Zook-like eventually in his recruiting, and that would hand it off to somebody who is a better coach. I have trouble believing he is great because that entire team seemed too spastic last year and lacked direction. So it's either a total goofball, it's good in that he's a recruiter, or it's very good in that he's a great head coach. I don't see that he's a great head coach at all.
And I don't think he's hired coaches that are just that schematically amazing. I mean, Rob Sale, his offensive coordinator, Dave was his offensive coordinator at Louisiana, and his whole career as an offensive line coach. No disrespect to offensive line coaches, Philip Fulmer, Jim Chaney, they can know offense, but when is the last offensive line coach who you heard as an offensive coordinator created an offensive scheme that was ahead of the curve? They don't do that.
No. It's once every 10, 15 years, isn't it?
I think it's once every 10, 15 years where an offensive line coach just becomes a coordinator. I'm talking about not just becoming a coordinator, but becoming a coordinator and developing a scheme that you would trust their scheme over someone else's scheme. I've never heard of an offensive line coach that they may be a good offensive coordinator, but that has an ahead-of-the-curve scheme. You know, Fulmer ran a standard pro-style offense at Tennessee. Jim Chaney ran a standard pro-style offense at Tennessee. I mean, have you ever heard of an offensive coordinator that invented Josh Heupel's offense or the RPOs or the fun and gun with Spurrier? No, they all run standard pro-style offenses, right?
Yes. Now, I think there are two things going on with offensive line coaches. I don't think they have the particular desire to be a coordinator. I think they like the man-on-man type of coaching that they do. So I don't think there's that desire. And also, to be real honest with you, most offensive line coaches I've met are not the brightest in the world. I mean, Philip Fulmer is very bright, but a lot of the offensive line coaches that I have met over the years have not been incredibly bright. Sam Pittman was an offensive line coach. I think he's bright, but give me an offensive line coach that you can recall that is smarter than that. It's just smarter than Philip Fulmer, smarter than Sam Pittman. That is another level of intelligence. I think you have to coach quarterbacks. I think you have to, in this day and age, understand passing trees and the box. And I don't think a lot of coaches, offensive line coaches, do that. I also believe that those coaches don't have necessarily that desire to become a head coach. By the way, we're putting together a hell of a concert. If you look at, we've got all these albums. So nobody said Guns N' Roses yet, but all these albums came out within a week of each other. It was Red Hot Chili Peppers, Sugar Sex Magic, whatever it's called. And then it was Nirvana came out. And then you had Pearl Jam 10. You had the GNR Use Your Illusions album. That's our Nealon show. Those 5 albums that came out.
The Social Security checks would pay for that show.
Mr. Jones said, and the Black Album by Metallica came out. So Mr. Jones said, I said GNR. Oh, Rocky Top Tom says guns equal garbage. I don't know. If you listen to the lyrics, they're pretty darn good. Okay, so with Florida, you should be more worried about Florida or South Carolina after what we've seen this past weekend.
Oh, we talked about this yesterday, funny enough, and we both still agreed Florida because Shane Beamer has the same problem Billy Napier has. Shane Beamer doesn't specialize in anything, and I have less faith in Shane Beamer's hires. I don't think – look, I don't think Shane Beamer made the smartest hires for coordinator this year. I'll leave it at that.
I'm not crazy about his staff in general, so I'll give you Florida, but I think it's a lot closer than everybody thought going into last year because Shane Beamer's doing the social media stuff. You have Billy Napier, who's Mr. Detail oriented, and suddenly he's kind of not. So let's go ahead and get to What the H. What the H brought to you today by Andy Mason, realestate.com, as Tennessee's getting snubbed. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
So the Vols have always been known as a program that rakes in the cash and spends it. The Vols revenue ranked number 18 nationally and 8th in the SEC for 2021-2022. This according to USA Today. Well, what the H? That seems really low to me. Back when I was covering it on a full-time basis and we would dig these numbers up at the end of every fiscal year, which usually happens in June, Tennessee was always top 5. So for them to be number 18 really surprises me. Number 1, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M, Florida, Penn State, Oklahoma, Auburn, Michigan State, Indiana, Virginia, Florida State, Kentucky, Clemson, and then Tennessee. What surprises you about that list, or what surprises you about the amount of money spent at other schools? Because to give you an idea, a total revenue at Ohio State was $251 million. Okay. At Tennessee, it was $154 million. That's $100 million deficit. That to me is a big deal. What do you think?
Yes, it's a huge deal, and it's a bigger deal than you think. Because we got the report back in February that Tennessee's athletic budget operated at a loss for 2021-2022. Nobody really panicked over that because it was the year after COVID, so you just had some things coming in. And on top of that, Tennessee had projects that were put on hold that they couldn't do during COVID that they did during the past year. So their expenses went way out of whack, which we all expected. You expected the expenses to go out of whack. You didn't expect the revenue itself. This isn't profit. The revenue to be so low. And so the revenue to be at $154.6 million when, again, every other school on that list also came out of COVID. And some of them, being in other conferences that didn't have football the way the SEC did during COVID, should have operated at a bigger loss. The only thing I could surmise is, so Tennessee's non-revenue generating sports apparently did not do as well in the 2021-2022 academic calendar. It was a bit disturbing on its own because Tennessee's supposed to be the best at drawing for its non-revenue producing sports. And the only thing I could maybe say is to not be concerned about is, remember, season tickets for that year for football, the revenue driver, probably weren't that high because nobody knew what to expect of Heupel. He was an underwhelming hire coming off a 3-7 program. I think apathy, before Josh Heupel's first year, I don't think apathy was any worse than it was during that particular moment. So I think I will reserve judgment and wait till 2022, 2023, and maybe even this year, 2023, 2024. We're seeing how Tennessee's selling out with season tickets. I think you'll see a really, really big spike there because, correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest driver of anything in revenue is football season ticket holders, right?
Absolutely. I think Tennessee will be in the top 8 or so when this list comes out next year. The teams that are going to be there year in and year out is Ohio State, Texas, for sure, because there's so much money there. Ohio State is the thing in Ohio. I've had friends that work there. It's not the Bengals. It's not the Browns. Ohio State is the thing when it comes to sports. It's not the Reds. It is the thing. Much like Tennessee, the University of Tennessee is the thing in this state. Texas being number 2 doesn't surprise me. They've got a ton of money. Alabama being at $214 million, one of only 5 teams above the $200 million mark, is because of Nick Saban. I mean, their revenue has gone up tremendously because of a long-term impact of Nick Saban. So I'm not saying the bottom's going to drop out when he retires, but it will come back a little bit more to normal. Michigan has an interesting group of people that want to get back to the football program. It's not like, and they're a highly regarded university, but it's not like Vanderbilt, where Vanderbilt just wants to get back to the academics. Georgia, I think the same thing as Alabama. They have seen a significant bump because of Kirby Smart. LSU surprised me just a little bit, but they're the only thing in that state as well. Texas A&M is going to compete with Texas. Again, oil money. Florida surprised me at number 8.
Remember this with Florida.
Say again?
Remember this with Florida. This was 2021. Heading into 2021, Florida had won the East in 2020, supplanted Georgia. There was a big belief that Dan Mullen was about to take the next step in 2021. So I bet they had a ton of season ticket sales ahead of that year.
Great point. Penn State in at number 9, Oklahoma at number 10, Auburn at number 11, Michigan State at number 12. Remember, Michigan State, this would be coming off the Mel Tucker fantastic year. Indiana is really surprising, but that's not because of football, but that's because of basketball. Virginia at 15 is a little surprising to me as well. Florida State, I think they got serious about football after they realized Jimbo Fisher left them with a mess. Kentucky at 16, a lot of that's basketball. Clemson at 17 surprised me, and then you get to Tennessee at 18. So what's a realistic goal now that we've already heard Tennessee crow about the fact that season tickets are sold out and that everything seems to be going well with NIL? But what is a realistic goal with Tennessee next year? I think it's to be top 10. I think it's to be right at the $200 million mark. They're at 158. And these numbers are very important, but they're not the only number anymore. That used to be the only number, okay? The other number that some of this money is getting taken away from is what? It's on a NIL. It's collectives. So if Tennessee comes to me and they say, we need you to spend $100 million this year, they may very well say, we want you to spend 80 in refurbishing all of the facilities and making sure that everything's going good, but we would like for you to spend 20 on NIL money. So is that factored in? No, NIL money is private money. They don't have to report that to anybody. These are public figures via FOIA. So I wonder too if Tennessee takes a dent in their reported numbers because they're giving more to NIL, which really is the same thing. Does that make sense?
No, that's a very good point. Something I didn't even think about, but you're right. I mean, Dave, from what you heard on the inside, I think you and I have heard the same thing, right? Tennessee's been willing to just outbid anybody for transfers, haven't they? Their boosters have opened up the checkbook pretty much to get guys they want to get.
They don't get Dante Thornton if they're not willing, from what I'm told, if they're not willing to pay big time dollars.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm hearing too. And you're right, that throws things for a loop a little bit with NIL. And I don't think Ohio State or LSU or Georgia would need to spend as much on NIL, or Alabama for that matter, because Alabama can sell Nick Saban, you will get you to the NFL. LSU and Georgia and Ohio State have the locational advantage. Ohio kids want to go to Ohio State, Louisiana kids want to go to LSU, Georgia kids mostly want to go to Georgia. So they don't really have to open the checkbook for their in-state recruit. They don't have to open the checkbook as much for the recruits they want as Tennessee does, because Tennessee has to recruit nationally. So they have to go to California and get a kid, or Oregon and get a kid.
If I'm Jim Haslam, and somebody calls me and they say, hey, we need you to give $20 million this year. And I'm just making up a number. And they say, we also need you to give $5 million in NIL money. Okay. I'm going to say, whoa. Just give me one tab. You know, when I go to a restaurant, I don't get a check for my appetizer, my main meal, and my dessert. Just give me one tab. Let me know what you need. And then we'll negotiate that number. And I can write 2 different checks if you want me to. Okay. But at the end of the day, this is the number I'm giving to the University of Tennessee in hopes that they have success. If 2 million of that 20 million or 10 million of that 20 million is NIL money, that's part of your tab. That's what I'm giving you. Don't come to me and ask for $20 million and 3 months later say we need this guy. Maybe you've heard about him. His name is Nico. And we need $4 million more dollars. Don't ask me that. I mean, I might give it to you if he comes out of nowhere, but if I've already cut you a check for $20 million, I don't know that I'm going to cut you a check for $4 million more just because you asked for it. You need to do a better job of bookkeeping, right?
Oh, I agree. That I never thought about that, but this is going to make accounting and accountants for universities is going to be a very, very, very in demand job at this point, because they're going to have to separate this stuff out at some point.
Well, and this number is not as big as it used to be, and it's probably never going to be, because it was about 150 million last time I checked it, and that was 10 years ago. So it's probably going to come down a little bit, but the bottom line is, let me give everybody a quick insight into how this works. So basically, aside from your emergency fund, you have to spend all of this money to be a, air quotes, nonprofit. Okay. So they are an air quotes nonprofit, which we all know it's a business, but they have to spend pretty much all of this money or put it into a fund, an emergency fund. So you might see this number go down because more are going to collectives. I'm a little surprised it's 180 million. By the way, Travis says you see orange everywhere. They're just hiding the cheese. It's absolutely right. And the most popular color of thongs at Bonnaroo was, guess what color?
Orange, I would assume.
By far. No idea why, but there were a lot of orange thongs. I didn't ask everyone if they were Tennessee fans because my wife would have gotten mad and they would have been creeped out by the old guy. But there were a lot of orange thongs at Bonnaroo.
where
I doesn't even know where to go with that.
No, where I was, they were usually green, funny enough, intriguingly.
Where
This was at Moonrise.
So was it in Lansing, Michigan?
No, Preakness. Where Preakness is held, they have a EDM festival every year called Moonrise, and it's on the track. And typically was green there. It was green at Firefly too. So, yeah.
How long do you think it took me before I saw my first thong with my daughter?
Wait, what?
No. She wasn't a thong. She's 20. But I want to take her to see that. So how long do you think it took me to see the first inappropriate thing at Bonnaroo?
Oh, they wear them in the hotels coming out. I mean, it probably didn't take you that long at all.
We didn't get through the gate is the answer. We didn't get through the parking pass gate before I saw an orange thong with a lady who probably should not have been wearing an orange thong. Tennessee's all-time coaching staff coming up. We're assembling one, and we want your input. What coach has to be on the all-time coaching staff for the Vols? So here's what we're gonna do, Caleb. I've broken it down. We're gonna pick an offensive coordinator. We're gonna pick a defensive coordinator. We're gonna pick two recruiters, 2 position coaches. So we don't have to go offensive line, defensive line, blah blah blah. We're gonna fit those guys in because it's just football. How complicated can it be? So, and then we're gonna pick a head coach. And I'm curious who your head coach is going to be because only a couple have won a national title. I guess Butch Jones is still out there. You loved Butch Jones, didn't you? Or was that Barrett Sallee? Oh, you're a Derek Dooley guy.
Oh, man, Dave. Do we need to talk about some of the coaches? Says the guy who's hardly given to Brian Kelly.
Barrett did not respond to a text to be on the show, so I wonder if he's heard about the repeated affection that he has for Butch Jones, which was a little bit misplaced. 2 minutes. We're back. Tennessee's all-time football coaching staff. We've done the research. We're going to give it to you coming up after this.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
When you want a hard cider that's easy to enjoy, one that's crafted to perfection, you need Tennessee Cider Company. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. With a selection of ciders free to sample, all it takes is one taste. Visit tncidercompany.com for more information, as well as to shop our ciders and merchandise online. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
We're going to play 4 Downs, brought to you by Andy Mason Realestate.com with an intro from Cooper Mays here momentarily. The all-time Tennessee football coaching staff is now. Let me get some of your suggestions. Who has to be on there? So here's my rule. Here is my rule. You have to have coached that position at Tennessee or in your history. So like I couldn't take trying to think of a good example. I couldn't put Josh Heupel at running backs coach just because I want an extra offensive mind on my group. Is that fair?
So theoretically, another example of that would be you can't have Lovie Smith as a defensive coordinator, even though he was a defensive coordinator and coached at Tennessee, because he was never a defensive coordinator at Tennessee. Am I right?
No, you could have him because he's coached defensive coordinator on his resume.
Okay. All right. So they have to have coached at Tennessee and had the position that they coached on their resume.
Right. All right. So, but I want to do this also in terms of breaking it down by recruiters and coordinators. And it's brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com. And Andy Mason his office has over 40 years of experience. Go to AndyMasonRealEstate.com for any real estate transaction you need, and he'll save you money. He has the best service and the best prices in the biz. It is just that simple. Go to AndyMasonRealEstate.com. All right. So let's start it out in a weird sort of way, because what I would like to do is I would like to fill in positions via coordinators, head coach, and recruiters. So I'm going to give you 1, 2, and 2. You get to pick a head coach. You get to pick 2 recruiters. I don't care if they coach the same position, and then we'll actually build a staff right here. So 4 Downs is now brought to you by Andy Mason, AndyMasonRealEstate.com.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 Downs. A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All righty, here we go. So let's go ahead and get it started right now. And I'm going to ask you first, you pick the 2 recruiters that you would go out and get and that would be on your staff, because let's face it, it is a recruiting sport. It's not like the NFL where you need the greatest minds in the world. You need the greatest recruiters. At the end of the day, you would take a 60-40 great recruiter over a 60-40 great schematic coach. I think you would agree with that, right?
I agree. Depending on actually, it depends on the job. At Nebraska, I would take 60-40 schematic because you can't recruit anyway, even if you have a good recruiter.
Fair point. And there are variances. I might take a 70-30 schematic coach. But nevertheless, here we go. Cooper, what down is it, sir?
Coop here. First down.
All right, first down. Your recruiters are?
I'm torn between 3 former head coaches, funny enough. Doug Dickey, Johnny Majors, and Philip Fulmer. Fulmer's on there automatically. I don't know who my other recruiter would be between Majors and Dickey. And because they both did certain things to take Tennessee national for recruiting perspective. But I think I would go Doug Dickey, because Doug Dickey made Tennessee a national brand as an athletic director, knowing that's what was needed to recruit.
Okay, I didn't include head coaches, so you got me there. But I'm going to say Trooper Taylor, and I think he's 1. And then I am going to I really, really want to put Dan Brooks in there because I thought he was an underrated recruiter. I thought he did great in the Carolinas, and I don't think he wanted a lot of credit nor cared. So Dan Brooks is right there. But instead of Dan Brooks, man, Fulmer as an assistant was just an incredible one. I'll tell you where I'm going to go. I'm going to go with Rodney Garner based off his history. Rodney Garner has been one of the best recruiters in the SEC throughout his history. Is he as good now as he was 10 years ago? Well, age, probably not, but he's still very, very good. So I'm going to go Trooper Taylor and Rodney Garner as my 2 recruiters. What down is it now, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, give me your coordinators. Give me your defensive coordinator first.
Okay. I'm torn between two guys, Dave, and you can help me. Since you said we could use him, Lovie Smith is one of them. Dude was a heck of a defensive coach.
Yeah, you kind of beat me on that one, to be real
But
honest
the other one I'm really torn is between him and Larry Lacewell, who invented the 4-3.
Was pretty good. And a bonus of a really good recruiter, too.
Yes,
he
that's
was
true.
a very good evaluator of talent for the Cowboys for a number of years.
And I got another major question. Yeah, do we put – somebody just beat me to the message board on this. Do we put Jeremy Pruitt in as defensive coordinator? I mean,
No,
whatever you want to say, because he –
Well, we don't just because he's stupid. So,
fair enough.
So there's a stupidity factor in there that can automatically get you knocked out. The message board, by the way, is saying Philip Fulmer, they agree with you, and Trooper as recruiters. And then we got Jeremy Pruitt as a question. Deion Sanders is a hypocrite and a loudmouth. We're only including guys that have ties to Tennessee. Did you see?
Okay, so we're down to Lacewell and Lovie Smith.
Amputated, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Did you see where he might have to have his foot amputated, by the way?
Yeah, he's had problems with that ever since playing at that Cowboys old stadium that calls turf toe.
Yeah, and it's not the sugar foot either. It's not diabetes, but he's already had 3 or 4 toes amputated. All right, so I'm going to go with those two, the ones I said. But Dan Brooks is a very close second, but I'll go with Garner and Trooper. All right, defensive coordinator. I'm going to go a little off script. I'm going to go John Jancic. And I think he did maybe a reach, but I don't think he had an offense that set him up for much. And the time I saw him, I don't know his career front and back, but I thought he did a really good job. And when he left, I thought it was a really, really bad sign for Tennessee's program. So I'll go Jancic. Offensive coordinator, man.
I think you're letting your disdain for Butch Jones allow your judgment to like John Jancic since they had a bad parting of the ways, because that he rushed 3 and had 2 guys in spy on a 4th and 15 against Florida.
That's fair. But I can't go John Chavis because I think he benefited from talent. So I'm gonna go Jancic on that one. You could talk me into Lacewell in a heartbeat. And then your offensive coordinator is who? Mine is going to totally stun you.
Well, do you want a coach who develops talent for the NFL or a coach who's more likely to win at the college level?
It is your parameter, sir. You tell me what you want.
I think it's obviously Josh Heupel. David Cutcliffe would develop you for the NFL better, but Josh Heupel is more likely to win games and out scheme coaches on game day. And it's about winning, baby. Just win, baby.
I'm going Lane Kiffin.
That's not a bad one.
I'm going Lane Kiffin over Josh Heupel.
But Dave, just last week we had a debate over who had a better offensive mind, and didn't we both agree that Heupel has the better offensive mind? Or did you say Lane? I forgot.
I think that Josh Heupel has a better offensive scheme. I think that Lane Kiffin, what he did with Jonathan Crompton and realizing that his confidence was crushed in the offseason, that 2009 season didn't get off to a good run, and him basically telling his brother-in-law, David Reeves, to go kick rocks and stay away from my quarterback. And he took over coaching quarterbacks, and they did a lot of rollouts and simple reads. I think that changed the way Jonathan Crompton is viewed forever. I think he saved a quarterback mid-season. I haven't seen many people do that. I don't know that I've seen anybody do that. So I would go Lane Kiffin as my offensive coordinator / quarterback coach. And you're looking at me like I'm semi.
Well, there's also
Jonathan was on a bad path that year. I can't share all the details, but that was going to go south until the Georgia game.
I remember that turning point game. There's also some chemistry factors, to be honest, though. And I mean, come on, Lane Kiffin playing second fiddle to another coach. I mean, it barely worked with Nick Saban. It barely worked.
No chemistry. They all get along. They all come in and they smoke a big fat orange joint, and they all get along.
Saban was basically like, don't even coach the national title game. You are way too toxic. Just go take your little Florida Atlantic job and get out of Tuscaloosa.
Well, but David Cutcliffe also left for the Ole Miss job and didn't coach the national championship game.
I don't think he was forced out. I think Saban kind of forced out Lane Kiffin.
He wasn't, and he was actually invited to come take part in some of the festivities, and he passed on it because Ole Miss had an early bowl game. So no, you're right, he wasn't. So that's my DC. I mean my OC. Who's your head coach?
This is obvious. It's Neyland. It's not even a question.
It has to be Neyland.
And here's the real reason it's Neyland. So Majors won a national championship in 1976 at Pitt. Fulmer won one in 1998 at Tennessee. Bowden Wyatt should have won one in 1956 at Tennessee. Doug Dickey got a retroactive one in 1967 at Tennessee. What do they all have in common? They all retired or were either retired under pressure or were fired after it was very clear that the game had passed them by. They really struggled towards the end of their careers. Neyland dominated in the 1920s, dominated in the 1930s, dominated in the 1940s, dominated in the 1950s. Do you know how great of a coach you have to be to adjust to different eras over a 40 to 50 year period?
Yes, which is why I'm changing my DC. Thank you. Oh, no, that was the wrong one. Putting it up on the message board now. Rocky Top Tom saying Monty Kiffin's son couldn't stop a group of 5-year-olds from taking a nap. Actually, I think that would be difficult. I'm going to say Monty Kiffin.
Monty Kiffin is your defensive coordinator?
Instead of Jansig, you got the better one with Lacewool.
Yeah, you could have gone with Lovie Smith, although Lovie Smith, didn't he develop under Monty Kiffin? So I guess you might as well take Monty Kiffin at that point. Or that's
I'm going to take Monty Kiffin. I am going to do that, although I don't know how good he would be against today's defense.
Yeah, he's another coach whose system he's another coach who couldn't adapt when his system got figured out. Because remember, the Tampa 2 got figured out in the early 2010s. And then he got forced out of USC because of that. And he couldn't.
Yeah,
and
but
then
he did
Cowboys.
But he did come up with a defense that still has a name.
Yeah, but then he went to your Cowboys, and that defense was historically bad. Remember that one?
Yes. Okay, so here is my rundown, and I might leave out a position. Fill me in if you want to. My defensive back coach is Kevin Ramsey. By the way, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't to this point. So we're going to go ahead. That was 4th down, by the way. The head coach is
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Neyland. That was pretty simple. And all right, here's my lineup. Defensive backs coach Kevin Ramsey. Now, you may not remember him a little bit before your time. He left the 98 team, was replaced by Larry Slade. Deion Grant said, if Larry Slade's going to be the head coach, then I'm leaving. And that's exactly what Deion Grant did. So Kevin Ramsey was the coach before that. Was a very good defensive backs coach. I got him. Wide receiver coach, because I have to find a way for the greatest recruiter, and he had great success, is Trooper Taylor. On the offensive side, this may surprise you, but I'm going off history and another offensive mind in the room. Randy Sanders as a running backs coach. As the offensive line coach, I'm going Philip Fulmer. That one was easy. On the defensive side, I go Steve Caldwell because of what he produced in defensive end talent. On the defensive tackle position, I'm going to go Dan Brooks because of what he was able to do, not only with those guys like Hainsworth and in particular, Hainsworth was a handful, but Hainsworth and Henderson, sure, they had talent, but there were a couple of guys along the way that weren't really motivated to play. And I thought Brooks brought out the best in them. People wanted to play for him. And the recruiter end of it, linebacker coach, I don't know. I'm going to let you fill in the blank there. And then quarterback coach, I know I'm going beyond the 10 NCAA limit. Quarterback coach, I would go David Cutcliffe. And again, my offensive coordinator would be Lane Kiffin. My defensive coordinator would, I'm going Monty Kiffin. My head coach is General Neyland. That's a pretty good staff. Both of us are going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, but I think I can beat your staff.
Lay it on me. Here we go.
All right, so Robert Neyland's my head coach. Heupel's my offensive coordinator. I like your give and take, but Heupel's my offensive coordinator. Larry Lacewell's my defensive coordinator. I'm going to go David Cutcliffe is my quarterback's coach. My running backs coach, and you forget this, he won an assistant. He won a national championship as an assistant backs coach under Frank Broyles. Johnny Majors is my running backs coach. And he coached a Heisman winner at running back.
Man, okay. You beat me with Majors.
My receivers coach would actually be Kippy Brown. I think that Kippy Brown had a great track record as a receivers coach when Tennessee became wide receiver U with the Carl Pickens years. Should have gotten the head coaching job in 2009. I could be swayed on that, though, to be fair. I could be swayed on that.
No, I think you're right. I think I'll admit I think I'll admit another loss on that, because you had Pickens and Harper come there, and Harper was a track guy, and Pickens, correct me if I'm wrong, was a junior.
He was a defensive back.
Guy?
No, he wasn't. No, but he was.
No, not Pickens. Who was the junior? They had Stanley Morgan, who I thought was raw, and who was the junior college?
Oh, Anthony Hancock. Was that his Anthony Miller? Anthony Miller, right?
Yes.
Is that his name?
So
yes.
He did. I will agree with that. I thought that Trooper had some guys that were pretty polished and pretty talented when they showed up at campus. So I will. I'll give you. I think you beat me on 2. And then we've got Peyton Manning, quarterback coach. He hasn't been a coach. Tennessee.
He hasn't been a coach, and he would be a terrible coach, guys. He would be a horrible coach.
I don't think you would want to do it. And then special teams coach. I don't know. You just throw that to somebody. But
Oh no, I got the guys. I'm still there. Which is George Kafiga. Was a longtime special teams coach for Tennessee. Was one of their elite players during the Neyland years. Go back and look him up, guys. George.
No,
Kafiga
I know Kafiga. Yeah, no, I know Kafiga.
Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah, Kafiga. I would give him Kafiga. But I mean, the thing. Yeah, Tennessee was really good on special teams when Caldwell was the coordinator. So I don't know. With defensive ends, there's not a lot to teach in defensive ends. It's kind of like running back, not exactly the same, but you've got time to do special teams. So I'd probably go Caldwell, just basically because we're running out of positions. You can only have 10 by the NCAA.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I think our staff's at about 14 and 15 and 18.
Well, Bowden Wyatt's coaching tight ends, by the way. He was an end himself. It was an epic end coacher. And then Fulmer, you're right, is coaching offensive line. I think Fulmer's the best offensive line coach Tennessee football ever had. But there is one guy who competes with Fulmer, and he coached both lines in the 1940s under Neyland when they emerged when the line became the dominant force of Tennessee. And his name was John Barnhill. And he stepped in for Neyland when Neyland
remember the name?
Served in World War II. It's between John Barnhill and Hodges West. Hodges West was there during the Doug Atkins years. So, but I don't think there was a lot of coaching with Doug Atkins. Nobody played.
Hey, Travis with a good point. This is a little bit of a reach by Travis, but I like it. Travis says go get Shane Beamer, who was a GA at Tennessee that focused on special teams.
That's true, but he was a GA at Tennessee when Leonard Scott was there, and Leonard Scott never matched his potential as a returner. And he also was a GA at Tennessee when the year after Alex Walls was an All-American, and Alex Walls never lived up to his All-American kicking after that. But he was a GA when Dustin Colquitt should have won the Ray Guy Award. So
that's true. And Rocky Top Tom brings up a great point. In some contexts, we discount pre-70s ball, but in this context, one of the most impacted by style of play in an era, we're mixing eras and not discounting era-restricted coaches. You're absolutely right. I've got no argument. Like, that's why I wouldn't go with a guy who coached Barnhill, who coached offensive line and defensive line. I just think it's too specialized now.
But hold on. I'm going to push back on that in this way. Coaching can transcend eras. Playing can't. Okay? There's a reason that coaches can coach till they're 75 or 80 if they're good, and a player can't play past 40 if he's good. Because, again,
I don't think coaching can transcend eras.
Coaches can transcend eras if they're good. Bear Bryant won a national title in 1950, and he also won one in 1978.
Okay, but you know how I feel about Jeremy Pruitt, that he's a dodo bird, right?
Right.
But he was the guy who said, and he said this during some impromptu conversation with some reporters, that he was ahead of the curve on. He said, I don't really care if they put their hand down or not. If their body gets parallel with the field and they're not losing speed, who cares if they start with their hand down or not if they're rushing the passer? That's something Barnhill would have never said. He would have thought you either have your hand down or you're a linebacker, right?
Theoretically, I guess that's true, but we don't know for sure how he changed with the times. I mean, that part's hard to say. You're right. But then, I mean, we could go that way with anybody because, look, at some point, Josh Heupel's offense is going to be figured out. And when that happens, again, the mark of Josh Heupel will be, can he adjust or not? Steve Spurrier's fun and gun was figured out. He went to South Carolina and then had the best 10-year run in South Carolina football history because he's a good coach. And it didn't matter that the game had passed by his system. He still knew how to coach.
Yep.
So, sorry?
No, you're right. You're right. And how about a topic for tomorrow? Will Josh, maybe I'll have my voice back from screaming at Dave Grohl. Tomorrow, how about we have the topic of will Josh Heupel's offense ever be figured out? Because there's a couple reasons schematically that unless they change the rules, I don't think it ever will. And I'm not sure that Steve Spurrier's ever was. I'm not sure that Urban Meyer's ever was. But
I think Spurrier was, but that's a different debate.
Yeah, I just don't. I think he was the only dude that could run it. It worked at South Carolina to some extent, right?
I don't think he ran the fun and gun in South Carolina. I think the thing we're forgetting is Steve Spurrier was just a brilliant offensive mind, and the fun and gun was the system, but he knew to run that system because nobody in the SEC could defend it.
I felt like he ran the fun and gun, but he would run the ball.
Yes. Spurrier went out. The real truth of Spurrier is that we overrated the concept of the fun and gun as a system. This was just Spurrier was a genius offensive mind who just knew how to he outsmarted other coaches on game day. And during that time,
Rocky Top Tom, I love that topic. He says Kirby figured it out last year, stopped the run, forced your DBs to man up. I love that notion, and I want to get into it tomorrow and share my thoughts. So we're always live at 10 a.m. weekdays. He's Caleb Calhoun. Thank you, Caleb, for filling in for me. And Caleb Drew, I think you can tell by my voice that I could not have done it yesterday, even if I didn't get home at 5:30 a.m. Thank you, Caleb's, and thanks for all the listeners. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a production